Hello, and welcome to this Microbiology Bio 203 video lecture from Chapter 26 of your OpenStax book, Nervous System Infections. I'm Mr. Kennedy, and I'll be your guide as we explore this topic together. Learning outcomes for Chapter 26 include being able to describe the major nervous system infections caused by bacteria, virus, fungus, helminths, and protozoan. We begin with a brief overview of the human nervous system. The human nervous system is subdivided into two divisions, the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system, or CNS, is comprised of the brain and spinal cord, while the peripheral nervous system, or PNS, is comprised of nerves from the sensory structures and nerves to effectors. Put another way, the peripheral nervous system is every other nerve of the body, with the exception of those that comprise the brain and spinal cord. Since the brain is the most important organ for our survival, it is heavily protected. Bone completely encapsulates the brain, forming the skull. Underlying those bony structures are the meninges. The meninges include the dura, arachnoid, and pia mater. Cerebrospinal fluid is another layer of defense or protection for the brain, and it rests between the pia and arachnoid matter. The blood-brain barrier limits what can cross from the blood to the brain. There is no normal microbiota associated with the brain or spinal cord. The cells that make up these structures are neurons and glial cells. Meningitis and encephalitis. Meningitis is inflammation of the meninges. Patients with meningitis exhibit severe headaches, fever, photophobia, stiff necks, convulsions, and confusion. Encephalitis is inflammation of the brain. Patients with encephalitis experience the same symptoms as meningitis, plus lethargy, seizures, and personality changes. If both the meninges and the brain are inflamed, a patient will be diagnosed with meningoencephalitis. Inflammation of the meninges, the brain, individually or both, is very serious. It can be caused by bacteria or viruses, but it can also be caused by trauma, cancers, and drugs. Bacterial meningitis is the most serious. Its portal of injury includes trauma, the result of bacterial toxins, or from upper respiratory tract structures. Its most common causes are listed here and include organisms such as Neisseria and Streptococcus. It is spread person to person and is diagnosed by sampling cerebrospinal fluid. Meningococcal meningitis is caused by gram-negative coccus. It is often fatal and can cause irreversible brain damage and tissue necrosis. Virulence factors include capsules, endotoxins, attachment and invasive proteins, and IgA proteases. Early signs of meningococcal meningitis include a skin rash. It's common amongst infants and young adults and can be treated with antibiotics if caught early. Vaccines do exist to prevent its occurrence. Pneumococcal meningitis is caused by an encapsulated gram-positive bacterium, S. pneumoniae. It's less aggressive than meningococcal meningitis and can be asymptomatic. In some individuals, it can cross the blood-brain barrier. Virulence factors include adherence and attachment factors and the toxin pneumococcal. Haemophilus influenzae meningitis is caused by H. influenzae. This is an encapsulated pleomorphic gram-negative coccobacillus. In children 2 months to 5 years old, this disease is fairly common. Most are immune after that. Multiple virulence factors can be found with Haemophilus. It has a capsule, factors for adhesion, invasion, and evasion of the immune system. A vaccine exists to prevent it. Neonatal meningitis is caused by group B Streptococcus. It's an encapsulated gram-positive bacterium and is most common in babies up to 3 months. There are 12 virulence factors. A few are listed here, which include capsules, attachment factors, pili, factors inhibiting phagocytosis, and complement activation. Tetanus. Tetanus is a non-communicable disease caused by Clostridium tetani, a gram-positive anaerobic spore former. Tetanus neurotoxin is an exotoxin and causes uncontrollable muscle spasms. It usually spreads from wounds. It can be localized, cephalic, or generalized, and death occurs by asphyxiation. It can be treated with antibiotics and antitoxins, and a vaccine against it exists. Botulism is caused by botulism neurotoxin. Clostridium botulinum is the organism that produces this neurotoxin, and it is a gram-positive anaerobic spore former. Portals of entry include wounds and food or inhalation. Upon infection, endospores will germinate and produce the toxin. Those germinating endospores producing live Clostridium grow from wounds or can be ingested. Intoxication occurs as the toxin, which was already produced, is inhaled or enters the body through food or some clinical procedure. Botulism can be fatal if respiratory paralysis occurs. There is an antitoxin available. Listeriosis is caused by Listeria, a non-sporulating gram-positive rod. It enters the body through contaminated food, specifically fruits, vegetables, meat, cheeses, and raw milk. It can grow at refrigerator temperatures. Hansen's disease or leprosy. Hansen's disease or leprosy is caused by a filamentous, rod-shaped, acid-fast bacterium, Mycobacterium leprae, which is an intracellular pathogen. It is communicable but not very contagious, and will ultimately damage the nerves of the patient, causing numbness and lesions. It can be treated, and there is no vaccine. Viral diseases of the nervous system. Viruses and subviral particles create viral diseases of the nervous system. There are more viral diseases of the nervous system than bacterial, and they're generally milder. Viral meningitis is more common than bacterial and less severe. Multiple viruses can cause it, ranging from herpes through mumps viruses, and they usually resolve spontaneously. Arboviral encephalitis. Arboviral encephalitis is transmitted by mosquitoes. Mosquito bites and injects an enveloped RNA virus. Different varieties of encephalitis RNA viruses include Eastern and Western equine encephalitis, St. Louis encephalitis, Japanese encephalitis, and common to our area, West Nile. Zika virus is an emerging infection transmitted by Aedes mosquitoes. It causes mild symptoms in adults, but can damage the brain in the fetus. Rabies virus is an enveloped RNA virus. It is a deadly zoonotic disease transmitted by the bite of an infected animal. Raccoons, bats, skunks, and fox are common carriers and transmitters of rabies in the United States. It infects axons and nerves and is transported to the central nervous system slowly, resulting in encephalitis. There are treatments available, which include antisera and a vaccine prophylactic. Poliomyelitis is caused by the poliovirus. It's mostly intestinal, but can infect the nervous system too. It is transmitted and or enters the body through the fecal-oral route, aerosol, and droplet transmission. It can destroy motor neurons and lead to paralysis. The best way to defeat poliomyelitis is through vaccination. Transmissible spongiform encephalopathies are caused by acellular prions or misfolded proteins. They can be found in animals and humans and be transmitted between the two. They result in a degenerative, fatal disease that affects brain tissue. Many are listed here. One that you might have heard of before in the news is mad cow disease. There is no cure. Fungal and parasitic infections of the nervous system are called neuromycoses. They are rare in healthy individuals, but do show up in immunocompromised and the elderly. Cryptococcocal meningitis. Cryptococcus neoformans is a yeast organism that lives in the soil. This soil-borne fungus is associated with pigeon and chicken droppings. It has a thick capsule that protects it from phagocytosis. In immunocompromised patients, it can lead to meningitis. Treatment or recovery is long and includes a combination of amphotericin and flucloxetine. Amoebic meningitis. Amoebic meningitis is caused by Naegleria fowleri. These are free-living organisms in the soil and water. They have a pathogenic trophozoite which reaches the brain through olfactory nerves in the nasal passages. It has a rapid progression and high mortality rate. Granulomatous amoebic encephalitis is caused by Acanthamoeba, which is a free-living organism found in bodies of fresh water. Infections of humans are rare. It can cause keratitis in contact lens wearers, and in immunocompromised individuals, it can lead to granulomatous amoebic encephalitis, and there is a high mortality rate. Human African Trypanosomiasis, also known as African sleeping sickness, is an insect-borne hemoflagellate known as the trypanosome. The trypanosome is transmitted by the bite of the tsetse fly. It goes to the central nervous system via the lymphatic vessels. The strong immune response that ensues creates many of the symptoms. The parasite uses antigenic variation to evade these immune responses, and neurological damage ensues. Those with African sleeping sickness ultimately will simply fall asleep and never wake up. Neurotoxoplasmosis is caused by Toxoplasma gondii. This is a ubiquitous intracellular parasite and a zoonotic organism with the cat as its definitive host. It can cause brain abscesses in immunocompromised hosts and has 6 weeks of multi-drug therapy needed to cure it. Neurocysticercosis is caused by the larva form of a pork tapeworm. It is the leading cause of adult-onset epilepsy in the developing world. It forms cysts in the nervous system. Antihelminthic drugs and anti-inflammatory drugs or surgery are the only ways to treat it. And this concludes our coverage of Chapter 26, the nervous system infections.